I'm coming. Just trying to. I don't know what's going on with the old computer these days. It's only a couple years old, but it is really struggling. I'll show you here in just a second what it's telling me. Golly, I can't even get this. Let's get over to the group. Let them know that we're going to talk here for a minute. It's another Wednesday luncheon is what we're going to do. I keep oscillating between how often I can get on here because I love getting on and chatting with everybody and answering questions and sharing stories, and it's a lot of fun. But my schedule is just so ridiculously full. So Wednesdays, I was going to try to do Monday through Friday, and I did that last week, and there's just too much going on. I have 6 daughters, and as you can imagine, that keeps me busy. 6 daughters, and one of them's a basketball player, 2 of them are cheerleaders. Just constant on the go. Going live to discuss multi. Oh, I hate it when I do one capital for a YouTube question. All right. Where are we at? We're still there. Okay, still there. This is my my poor computer, and it's a gaming system, but I am maxed out on 100%. So in order to have my face here without a green screen behind me to do it kind of all electronically, I use Snap Camera, which eats up 20% of the CPU. And then the Streamlabs is both the OBS and the Streamlabs is another 30 to 40%. But I have tried like crazy to disable this anti-malware service executable, whatever that is. I've tried 4 or 5 different ways to disable that thing. But this is why I'm lagging. And I've got to get in and see why so the memory's all getting ate up by the streaming system. So anyway, my apologies if there's a lag. I need to hop on and grab the comment section out real quick. Let's close that. Let's get into here somehow. Slow, slow, slow. But I got a question on one of my YouTube videos, and that is why we're here today. Plus, I figured I would just do this during my lunch break. No, I don't want to hear myself talk. Boy, when I'm not running the Streamlabs, this is like instant. In fact, I have an upgraded internet from the local internet supplier that gives me more gigabytes of up and down, so I can do this stuff much quicker. But we're just going to pop this out and move it over here. Okay, so the question today is about multimodality pay and how you get paid. And I was having a conversation with this fella, this gentleman, Lowry Kakaki. I don't know how you say it, but he said I'm in nuclear medtech school. Would PET be the best second modality option? And I said, yeah, if you want to stay in PET. If you want to stay in nuclear medicine. If you want to stay in nuclear medicine, yes, PET is the next step up. If you're wanting to try something different, you can go into any of the other modalities, but of course they'll require training. So he said, well, should I expect a certain salary with multimodality education? And I started to talk, yeah, great question. Typically, a tech who has multiple licenses gets paid at the highest modality. On rare occasion, when the company's being cheap, they may try to only pay you for the modality that you're working in that day if it's a lower modality. So let me explain that, because that's kind of sounds confusing. As a multimodality tech myself, I went to x-ray school, learned CT on the job, went to ultrasound school, learned MRI on the job, and the highest rate of pay that I received was as a sonographer, and that was around I think the highest I got back then was $33 an hour. But I was the guy on the night shift that did all of it by myself. But it was only a 10 bed ER. You know, it was a 30 bed hospital. It was 10 in the ER, 10 in the ICU, and 10 on the floor. But I did all of them. And so in that particular case, they should be paying you at your highest modality pay, because even if I only did x-rays all night long, I still had the knowledge, experience, and licensure as a sonographer, and that's what I should always be paid at, is my highest level. But what I had referred to in this comment was at a hospital that shall remain nameless. What they tried to do, among many sketchy things, was they said, so we had X-ray and CT techs, multimodality techs that would work. Mostly it was, you take an X-ray tech and you cross-train them in CT, and then they're in CT. And if it ever got slow, which is very rare in CT, but if it ever got slow, maybe in the evenings or something, or 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, they could go over and shoot some X-rays. Well, I ran into some cases in this local hospital where the CT tech was helping out quite a bit in X-ray with things like the morning run, and like maybe there was this particular hospital was a 220 bed hospital, so the morning run could be 20 morning portables up in the ICU unit, or any of those critical care units, PICU, NICU, ICU, STICU, whatever you. And so my administrator said, well, we need to do calculations, and if they're spending more than 50% of their shift doing X-rays, then they should be paid as X-ray techs for that shift. And I was like, after I took a break and calmed down, I said, no, that's not how this works. So if that ever happens to you, that's a big, huge red flag, and you need to figure out a way to address that. But it shouldn't happen, because once you graduate to that next level and get that licensure, you should then acquire that job description through your employer and be paid at that level. And so there's a lot of things to kind of discuss on this topic, but I'll try and keep it brief. Well, one of them is, once you graduate to that next level, like let's say in this particular case, Lowry is in nuke med school, and if you then go on and learn how to do PET scans, PET pays higher. PET actually has its own licensure that you can get. And if you go that route, see, many hospitals won't pay you for that higher modality if you don't get the corresponding licensure. Like typically when I cross-train an employee from, say, CT to MRI, I may pay for the training, but I don't pay them at MRI wages. I don't pay them an MRI wage until they're licensed as an MRI tech. So if it takes you 6 months to cross-train into MRI, you'll get paid your CT wages while you're cross-training, but you will not get paid as an MRI tech until you pass those boards. And typically, that's part of the arrangement for cross-training, is within so many months of completing the training, you will get your licensure. So Lowry, what I'm getting at is nuclear medicine is going to pay you very well. And the only con of nuclear medicine is that you just don't need as many nuke med techs in a hospital as you do, say, CT or X-ray. But nuclear medicine departments are typically about the size of, say, the IR department, or maybe mammography, depending on the size of your facility and what you're doing. Typically, MRI departments are expanding all the time, because more and more exams are being ordered MRI, and more things are being discovered that you can do with an MRI. MRIs are getting faster, where in the past it used to just take too long to get the data. Now they're doing quick scans. So MRI typically needs a few more techs than your standard nuclear medicine department does. But with adding in PET to nuke med, and they typically go hand in hand. There was a fight early on whether or not a CT tech should be doing the PET scans, but it's been accepted that that's a nuclear medicine thing. And so learn your nuke med, enjoy your nuke med, get comfortable with it, play with your isotopes, and then if you can get cross-trained in PET, I highly recommend it, because it'll make you more valuable. And that's a big debate going on right now on our Facebook group. Somebody chimed in. If you're not a member of the Facebook group, hop over there and join. Lots of good stuff going on. Over 4,000 members at this point. But somebody hopped in and said, basically they were just shilling for their outpatient clinic, their ortho clinic, because they need to hire somebody. So they were saying, hey, I work there and I really like it, and we need some more help if you're looking for a job. But they just happened to mention that they also do a lot of other side work at the job. It's right here from Jessica. My employer in Louisiana is hiring x-ray techs. This is honestly the best job I've ever had, and I'm so blessed to work here. We work as medical assistants also and provide orthopedic care and wound care and triage patients. On the job training is available, and my particular clinic is looking to bring in an orthopedic specialist also. So anyway, this is just a conversation, somebody saying, hey, we need more help if you're interested. But what it kind of kicked off was that there's a subgroup of techs out there that say, hey, once you start, and I've seen this has happened to me, and I chimed in, but once you start taking on more duties, oh, I see that you're on the chat now too, so I'll read that here in just a second. Once you start taking on more duties, and this relates to Lowry, if you pick up pet tech skill on top of your nuke med skill, once you learn more skills and begin to perform them, whether you're getting paid extra or not, you'll be expected to continue to perform those. And so there's this subgroup of technologists, which I would probably consider myself in that group for the most part, is you've got to be careful with how much extra you do. These x-ray techs who are setting casts and splints and doing back office work and blood pressures and maybe even some lab work. It's great that you enjoy it, and I understand what three different people chimed in and said, that's what I do, and I love it. It makes me more around a tech. I agree. And it does help you to understand the clinic and the healthcare environment as a whole. I'm just giving you a gentle warning that as employers are always about making a profit. And the more you offer to do, the more they're going to expect you to do. And there may come a point where you can't unwind all these things that you've offered to help on. So if it works for you, great, do it. I've done it. I've done extra things. I've done phlebotomy at certain places because I did phlebotomy before I did x-ray. But just understand, coming from a quad modality tech who was expected to do all four modalities after I learned them all, but it was a small enough hospital that I could handle it. Just be careful of taking on extra duties. So in nuke med, like Lowry's talking about, it's not too much of a pull to go to do nuke med and pet. You can't necessarily do them both in the same day. It depends on your patient's schedule. You may have a full pet schedule, and that puts you in that room all day. Where these people in these ortho clinics are basically saying, if we don't have x-rays to do, we're doing other stuff, which is fine. And that makes your employer happy, which gives you a little more job security. But then again, at the end of the day, your job is expendable and you are replaceable. And too many people, myself included at one point, felt like I do so much around here, they'll never get rid of me. They couldn't replace me. Well, they did. And it took a while, or it may take a while, or they may split your job into two jobs, which is what they should have done in the first place. But never think you're not replaceable, and just make sure you know what your limits are. Like I had an x-ray tech once at a clinic similar to this, and they said, hey, there's a lot of snow out there. We need you to go out there and shovel the sidewalk. And she's like, that's not my thing, and I kind of have a back issue, so I'll do the x-rays, I'll do your inventory, I'll help out with your MA stuff, but I'm not going out there and shoveling snow in 10-degree weather, blah, blah, blah. And I ended up getting called about that, and I talked to the tech, and I talked to the practice manager, and the practice manager was kind of like, hey, we kind of expect everybody to help out around here. And I had that PC kind of, politically correct talk with that office manager, and said, we're always happy to help out where we can, but you've got to understand that there are certain limits that people can do. She was not hired as a maintenance person. She was not hired as a sidewalk shoveler. She was hired to perform a certain set of duties, and she goes above and beyond those regularly by doing MA work and helping you with the inventory. So try not to get too upset when she doesn't want to take on a whole new responsibility that could also cause her a personal injury because she has certain issues that she has to work with on her back and that kind of thing. So it ended up getting worked out, but you will continually, as an employee, get asked to do more and more things. And it's up to you to decide what your limits are. But to get back to Lowry, um, my strategy is to get my CNMT board work PRN because the need is low in my area. Then while I'm working PRN, get another modality to increase my. Yeah, that's brilliant. So knowing the PET can increase my, yeah, that's, and you're the only one that can do PET. Nuke Med Techs are the only ones that can do PET. Again, you're back to the scarcity factor, meaning, there's only one PET scanner probably unless you're in a huge, multi-block facility. There's one PET scanner. And the last 220 bed I was at only had two Nuke Med cameras. And one of them was down a lot. But you don't need a lot of pet techs, and you don't need. But if I remember right, just a couple years ago, my pet tech was looking at about $50 an hour once they got licensed, and that's always negotiable, and it always depends on what state you live in. If you're in a small town or a big city, a lot of variables in there. But pet is probably one of the highest pay you can get to. And it's exciting if you ask me. Of course, I'm a radiology nerd, but to me, looking at things molecularly, and what I like about NukeMed is it can do. Hey Annie, there's like a good 30-second lag or more between what I say and what you guys hear, so just know that. But like Annie, your comment just popped up and it's probably been there a while. But being able to see things on a molecular level is very exciting to me because it's newer technology, right? We started with X-ray 100 years ago, and all you could see was the gray shade of a bone, and then we slowly moved into CT and MRI and ultrasound and all these other things. And so PET is going to save the nuclear medicine modality, in my opinion, because over the years, and any radiology director can tell you this, and probably Nuke MedTech too, NukeMed was on a slow decline for utilization, and we were slowly needing less and less NukeMed techs, and the hours got cut back to 8 to 5 or 8 to 3 or whatever. And there's really not a need for a stat NukeMed. I know there's docs that'll order stat NukeMed exams, but there's really not. I mean, I guess you can make a case either way, but it's not like CT where you get called in after hours all night long for CTs or for X-rays or for MRIs or whatever. But the fact that you're in Nuke Med school is awesome because that's a great paying job. Nobody else can do what you do, and you'll be of high value. And to travel is, well, you're PRNing. That's not the same as traveling. PRN to get more money, and that also gives you the ability to try some other places. I would work at 2 and 3 hospitals at a time. I could work, full time one place on the nights, and then I'd pick up PRN at a couple others. And I did that to kind of get my foot in the door because a lot of hospitals will only hire from their PRN pool. There's just not a lot of students coming out of the schools these days that we can hire straight out of. So we have to build up this PRN pool and slowly put them into a part-time and then into a full-time. So I think you've got a great plan. If I were to, my area, every location only hires Nuke Med PRN. Yeah, because it's on a downward slide, but PET is going to come in. And I recommend, if you're not doing it already, one other place for you to check out would be antmini.com. AntMini is kind of the end-all be-all of the radiology world. It's like our little digital Disneyland of sorts. I would go to create an account. It's free. This whole thing is free. But go to communities and then go into, there should be molecular imaging right there. And there might be separate for nuke, maybe not. But get in there and start looking at the latest news and see what's going on. There's industry news over here on the side. There's articles. There's at least 4 or 5 articles every day, and some of it's fluff, but some of it's good stuff. And keep up to date with what's going on in nuclear medicine. I have found over the years that was a great way to start my day, is to hop on AntMini, see what the latest news is, check out a couple of my other favorite radiology sites. On occasion, I'll go to YouTube and I'll just type in the word radiology and I'll sort by latest. and I'll see what's out there. That's how I find these newer YouTubers, because I've been really pushing for all the techs out there to start trying to create their own channels and share their knowledge, because that didn't exist in the past. We were always kind of intimidated by the hospital systems that we're not allowed to film in the hospital. We're not allowed to take pictures, which is true, but that doesn't mean we can't share our knowledge and our experience on our own. And what some of the techs are doing is they're just putting a generic hospital background behind them and doing like I'm doing with the green screen. And so it looks like they're talking like I've done that, where I put an image of one of my IR suites behind me and it looks like I'm sitting in the IR suite. But I've been encouraging them to share their knowledge. I've got their students on there now that are sharing their journey in school. But I get on YouTube and I look and see what's the latest technology, what's the latest videos out there, what's going on, and it's a good way to keep your mind current on current conditions as you're going through school, or even just being a tech or a director. It helped me quite a lot even as director. So Annie, to get back to you, I'm a multi-modality tech, and by the time I quit the last job, I was routinely doing X-rays, CTs, MRs, all right. And it's not that we mind, right? In fact, we have to do a little bit of what we're trained in on a regular basis to keep our skills up, or we start to forget. But you have to be careful of the employers taking advantage of that, and you also have to make sure you're getting your fair pay. Like I said, you should get paid at your highest modality, because that's your highest level of skill and education. And if they're not willing to pay you at that, maybe it's time to vote with your feet and walk down the street and get a job somewhere else, like they did in the recent case of ThedaCare versus Ascension, where if you haven't heard about that, go a few videos back on my timeline. There were 7 out of 11 IR techs and nurses who actually one tech went down the street and applied at the competitor for an open position and found out they paid way more and had a lot better benefits, and they went back and told the team, and 7 out of 11 said, we're out of here, we're going to go down there and get better pay and better benefits. And they came back to their employer and said, look, we got these offers, if you'll match it, if you'll just match it, we'll stay. And the hospital said, we don't have to pay you anymore. You don't get more. You don't get to tell us what to do. And they were on a Friday. They were going to quit. It was their last day or whatever. And this hospital, ThedaCare, thought their best option, not give them a raise and keep them. Their best option was to sue the competitor to try to keep them from hiring these techs and nurses. And the scary thing was, over the weekend, the judge on Friday said, let's just hold everything off. Nobody changed jobs, and you two hospitals get together and work it out, which, is never going to happen. So Monday came, we had our day in court, everybody went, the techs got to speak, and it came out that ThedaCare wouldn't match, and that ThedaCare had a poor work-life balance. And the judge said, you can't stop people from getting jobs somewhere else. That's the free market. And off they went. And ThedaCare was like, we're not going to be able to offer our stroke services. We're stroke accredited. We're not going to be able to offer what we do to our community. And it's going to be detrimental to the community if these evil techs go, or if the evil competitor hires away our techs. No, it was transparent as could be to everyone. You didn't pay enough. You didn't even step up when they offered to let you step up, and they lost the tech. So there's a movement out there. Techs are finally waking up that we are worth our weight in gold. And if you don't believe me, stop by my Facebook group and see what the recruiters are offering right now for travel techs. I mean, we're talking $4,000 a week in some cases. We're talking $10,000 sign-on bonuses for multi-year contracts. There's some big money, because hospitals like ThedaCare lost 7 out of 11 of their IR team. And if you don't know how that works, if you get accredited in a certain service and you lose the ability to provide 24/7 coverage, you lose that accreditation. You no longer get to do those IR procedures. So what ThedaCare is going to have to do is hire travelers at hundreds of dollars an hour instead of paying their own techs another $5 an hour. Because they were too greedy and stubborn to work with their current employees. So I probably ought to wrap it up Uh, Lowry, you're on the right track. Get through nuke med school. It's hard enough just getting into nuke med school, so good on you for getting in. That's awesome. And then if you can get cross trained, I'm not sure if you've planned that or how you plan to do that. That's tough. Not every place offers to cross train. I know you said that you were planning on getting cross trained while you did some PRN work. If you find a place that will cross train, absolutely take them up on that because less and less employers are cross training. And I did a video on that the other day. And I've got a big article on my blog about it too, if you want to read why it is better for a department to cross train than it is to hire from outside sources. I wrote that both for the text so that the text would understand, but also if you want to give it to your boss anonymously or whatever to say, here's why it's always better to cross train. And there's multiple reasons, but if you do find somebody that's willing to cross train, you take them up on that and jump on that. So, what do you think about this hold on? Wait, what? Say that again. What do you think about this hold on before you go? You're probably typing it out, so I'll kick it for a minute. But yeah, lots of stuff popping into the group. I gotta start. There's no point in people from Africa posting for jobs in our group. This is the ART. We're an American group. I highly doubt anybody's going to want to leave and go to South Africa for a travel gig, but I guess you never know. So this one actually got a little bit of tease. They posted a CT X-ray job for $4,000 a week, which is nice pay, but they put in a $500 sign-on bonus. And Greg hops on. He's like, "Ooh, $500 I mean, hell, a set of scrubs will run you $100 these days. So you get two pairs of nice Carhartts or whatever you like to wear. You're looking at 200. Then you add shoes, Hokas for another 150. There's 350 just for two pairs of scrubs and shoes. So anyway, I commented, hey, 4,000 a week's nice for X-ray and CT, and the bonus is just that. It's just a bonus. But lots of people offering new gigs. I posted how to interview, how to land your first job in there. So you got to check that out, Lowry. This interview. This was something I saw a guy actually do at my hospital. He drove 3 hours up to kind of what do you want to say, romance us, if you will, so that he could get a job with us. Um, okay, so Lowry chimed back in. What do you think about taking an entrepreneur vision like setting up your own med travel and contacting hospitals to hire you as a traveler? I've actually thought about that because I see so much of it on my group. It is certainly something you can do. It's something you can do from home. Um, I did it in a different industry. I was actually in before I did medical, I was in swimming pool service and repair because I was in Phoenix and I was figuring what could I do around here, and I looked around and everybody had swimming pools. So I started cleaning pools and I had, like 100 accounts or whatever. And I realized I was always running into my buddies that also had their pool businesses and they would have to take vacation or whatever. And they're like, can you cover my pools while I'm on vacation? So, duh, that's a staffing agency. So I started hiring my friends to do their pools, and I would charge them, charge the company X amount, and I'd pay my friends a portion of that, and it was a win-win. It's the same thing for X-ray. In fact, I knew an MRI tech back in Phoenix who started his own travel agency, and his only employee was himself. So he would negotiate the contract for $90 an hour, and then he would pay himself, 60 or whatever it was, and the rest would go into the company. But he did it and just pimped himself out. So that is a good idea. That and I think mobile. I just did a recent video on mobile radiography and how to start a mobile business. There's always a need for that out there, like for nursing homes. If you think about every time somebody in a nursing home falls down, either falls out of bed or falls in the bathroom or on the way to the bathroom, typically a lot of them end up needing x-rays to make sure they didn't break a hip or something like that, and they have to call an ambulance and pay for the ambulance ride, which is usually $1,000. Ambulance takes them to the hospital, drops them off. Sometimes the nurse has to stay with them. Sometimes they just dump and run, and we have to watch them. But a nurse should stay with them, and then they get the x-ray, and then the ambulance has to get called back, get a ride back. If somebody just pulled in with their mobile unit, you just wheel it in, take a picture right there at bedside, process it in your van or whatever, and take it back. Super simple business concept. You just need a radiologist to read for you once a day or every couple of days, and super simple business. So check out my video on that. And on my site, if you go, I interviewed a gal for my podcast who is the mobile radiographer for Hollywood. And she tells a great story. It's about an hour, a little over an hour interview. It's under media. If you go to the radiologictechnologist.com, scroll down to podcasts. Miss Trish, lots of stories about driving through the California fires, stories about X-ray, and of course you can't say people's names because of HIPAA, but she talked about these big luxurious houses and how she got tips, which I didn't even know you could get tips as a radiographer. But if you go down to right here, click here to listen to the podcast X-Rays of the Rich and Famous. She talks a lot about how it's not her company, but talks about her rate of pay and what she has to do and the calls she goes on and how she does it. But that's definitely something that as technologists we don't think about. We typically go to our job, do our thing, and go home, and don't realize there's a whole other world out there. So yeah, you could do your own traveling agency too, like how some entrepreneur nurses set up their own travel company and get paid the actual bill. Yeah, no, that's absolutely you could get your own liability insurance for a couple $100 a year. Put a couple $1 million liability insurance on you. Do you think the same is possible for RadTech NukeMed? It is, but again, there's not a lot of need for nukes out there. There is a need for portable NukeMed cameras, and by portable I mean the big semi-trailers to get dropped off outside the hospital, because either a hospital is not big enough to buy a camera and use it often enough to make it profitable, so they call in these once a week or once a month rentals, or they're replacing their current camera with another camera, and that can take a month to 3 months depending on what you're doing. And so they'll negotiate into the contract when buying a new one, they'll negotiate it in bringing in a rental and parking it outside. And depending on who the rental company is, sometimes they will not let you provide your own tech to be in that rental, so they provide it. Other times they will let you put your own person out there. So I know techs that work for those kind of companies that just travel around and do these temporary gigs while the trailer is at a certain hospital, and it pays really well. So yes, that is possible. Who is the person that you would contact to know if the radiology department is looking for travelers? You could call HR and ask HR, or you could call the radiology director. Sometimes it's hard to get through to them. Sometimes they have kind of a guard dog secretary, somebody taking the calls and then blocking them, or say, I'll have them get back to you or whatever. But either the person running the department or asking human resources, and they will know. That's who you talk to. Okay, so I think we're good. I'm gonna close it up here. Thanks for stopping by. Make sure you hit the like button on the video. Let me see if it's still. Any other questions before I take off? The computer's going so slow. Let's see if I can get it to open. For watching, 5 likes. I'd say we're good. Thanks everybody for chiming in and checking in and hitting the like button. I appreciate it. If you have any more questions, just like Lowry did, he just posted them on one of the videos. And in fact, while we're talking, Lowry, I will post this in the comments. If I can get it to work. That is the link to the podcast. And this is the link to our Facebook group. Anyway, thanks for stopping by, guys. Well, let's try to make it a Wednesday deal. Let's try to do lunch on Wednesdays.